All right, it's the incident that nearly broke the internet. Let's take a look back at the decision from referee Ben CUMMINS that sent rugby league fans around the world into a frenzy.
Graham wanted to speak to me, I don't want to speak to him. I'm a big enough boy to make my own call. And I'd like you to think it was a wonderful grand final. I saw it was a very tough game that we could have won. If it is the wrong call, I've only seen it once. There's not a referee that would go out there to try and make it a mistake if it was a mistake.
Called 6 to go again, and then you're on the back of that, you score off the back of that.
Look, I don't see that. Did you felt as though we got lucky there, JT?
No, I was just saying because he called 6 to go, and then he scored 5th tackle. So I was just asking what your thoughts were on that.
Mate, my thoughts, honestly, if you're bringing that up at this time, there could have been lots of decisions that we want to go through. You know, mate, what are my thoughts on that? I thought that we were under the pump for a lot of that game, and we fought hard and we won the game. I felt like a lot of controversy at different times, and we decided to take advantage of it, and we decided to make a difference and change the momentum of the game, and we did. The first question you've asked is about a 6 again, which probably shouldn't have been a 6 again anyway. Instead of one of the biggest calls of the night, because we defended that for 10 minutes. Therefore, we're not asking about it. I'll leave that up.
The referee initially rules 6 again, and then one of his touch judges and the assist referee immediately tell him that it's come off the Canberra player. He corrects his initial call, and then in the space of the remaining play, he calls last tackle on at least 4 occasions before the play breaks down. It's obviously very messy and very disappointing for the game as a whole that we're now talking about an incident where they actually got the decision right, but they got it right in a way that's created an enormous amount of controversy.
All right, what was your overall assessment of this 6 again incident? I want you to start as you're taking in the grand final live.
Yeah, I was outraged.
Yeah.
Outraged by what I saw. Having watched it back in replay, having spoken to Graham Annesley about it, understood what happened, I get it. They did make the right decision ultimately, but there's no doubt Jack White was confused. I'm very surprised if he could have heard the referees at that point in the game, given that you often hear players talk about those big, it's 80,000 full stadium, all at peak of voice.
Everyone who was there says the crowd was going.
Yeah, and so all Jack White could react off was what he saw, not necessarily what he heard. So he had every right to be confused. But Ben, the replays do show that it looks like it, more than one replay shows, it looks like it came off Jared Croker's shoulder, not James Tedesco's shoulder. Therefore, it was the right decision. Ultimately, where the Raiders got robbed, the Raiders were coming after the Roosters at the time. And it changed the Raiders didn't probably handle it as they would have liked to. Every setback they'd had, every mistake they'd made earlier in the game, they'd been able to, in football terms, defend their mistakes. This one knocked them out of their groove just enough that the very next set, the Roosters go 80 metres and score the match-winning try. It's as big a controversy grand final-wise as they come.
It's impossible to sugarcoat it. It'll be remembered as one of the greatest grand final stuff-ups in the history of the game. Like, we'll be talking about it in another 20 years. I remember back in 2019 when the Roosters were trying to go back-to-back and the Raiders were in this epic arm wrestle with them, and it was end-to-end, and, you know, the Raiders were just starting to get some ascendancy. And, I mean, Ben, you've been there as a player. Your mentality in a massive game like that and a call like that goes against you, and how can that impact on your headspace in that?
I've been in one premiership game, which we won, and I'd hazard a guess, based on what I saw last night, that we weren't doing it as tough at the Brisbane Broncos in 2000 as either of those sides were last night. They were out on their feet. you've got to remember, you know, leading into this particular incident, the Raiders had thrown everything at a Roosters side with 12 men, okay? And
couldn't crack them.
Couldn't crack them. So when this goes against you, you know, knowing how fatigued you are, some of those shots I saw of Josh Papali, you know, during that game, he just couldn't physically do any more. And I felt that a lot of the Raiders were in that position physically. So when something like this sort of gets inside your head, you get on your heels very quick. And to the Roosters' credit, they were able to lift themselves up off the canvas and strike immediately. So they didn't just go back into one-out football. You know, all of a sudden they're attacking the line. I mean, there was the Siwa Takiaho break before this, and then all of a sudden they're pushing to an edge and find the energy to come up with the match-winning play.
They showed their championship qualities.
Correct.
They absorbed all that pressure from the Raiders' attack, and then when they finally got a glimpse of sunlight, they took it and they scored.
Do you think this is why Trent Robinson is so annoyed with the commentary post-match? Because those champion qualities perhaps haven't been the headline?
Yes, and that would have been his focus. But that doesn't avoid the fact.
Still a story.
It's a major story out of this game.
Absolutely. And Jonathan Thurston was well within his rights. I thought he was very respectful.
And left hanging by
I thought
his
he was very
crew that was sitting with him
respectful the way
just quietly.
that he asked that question and, deviated off in a different direction where it probably...
He needed support there, Thurston.
Yeah.